Hello, my dear souls. I'm very pleased here to be here with you. You know that the Chronicles are in English today because my guests, Dr. Eben Alexander and Karen Newell, are from United States, sorry. And then you will have the subtitles after then, my video. Okay, so I tell immediately, welcome. Thank you very much to be here. Mrs. Karen Newell. Hello.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello. And Dr. Eben Alexander.
Great to be here, Tricia.
Yes, me too. Me too. I'm very happy to that you come back again to speak about your very incredible experience, and then what you make with it, with, for example, with Karen, because I read a lot of things about her and you together. So for beginning, I will make a short summary, if you are agree together. Okay. Thank you. So following our last interview with Dr. Alexander, you have explained, Doctor, what happened to you when you made a near-death experience. And this happened during 1 week long in a coma. And then you should have been dead because the doctors and scientists told your family and doctors that it can be possible that you are alive, and then with the trauma in your head that it was impossible. It is a miracle. You are a miracle. And I suppose that with divine consciousness, that you are a gift for humanity, because you come back with a lot of information and with a lot of words to help people for healing. So for that, you can follow my chronicle with Dr. Eben Alexander, where he talks about that, about his story. And you can find his story, of course, in this book behind me, the first one, and then the proof of heaven that is translated in French in France for our pleasure. Then today you don't come alone, you come with Karen Newell. And Karen Newell, I'm very pleased to welcome you here in the Chronicles. And I will make a little summary about you, Karen, and you will tell your story when you begin your story after then, because Karen, you are an author, a specialist in personal development and sacred acoustics recordings techniques of healings. You organize some workshops and guided meditations in order to engage to guidance, achieve inspiration, improve wellness, and develop intuition. You had a life before, because before this, you were more in the magazine and newspaper fields. I read it. You can discover her biography in the site I will put under then about, of course, Sacred Acoustics programs on internet. And then at the moment you met a man who is calling Kevin Cossey, a licensed engineer. And this one, when he was child, was used to leave his body and travel into other realms, during lucid dreams. He lived also a near-death experience, and it was after that he wanted to share his experience. And then he created Neural Helix program. It is a powerful acoustic entertainment technology using binaural and monaural tones in perfect harmony and synchronicity, bringing to calm in mind. So it's a little long, but I explain. It's not so easy to explain all what we created because it's a very long process. And you founded then with him a site for sharing experience. And it is at this moment when Dr. Eben Alexander discovered this, that he contacted you, I suppose, he contacted you to share his own experience, okay? And it is why in the last few years, you had together writing a book. It is called Living in a Mindful Universe. And then the purpose of this book is to talk about consciousness exploration by art awareness. And it is to help people or to teach people to achieve life transformation and to be aligned with their soul. So I'm finished. So now, Karen, we will be gentle with the woman. Karen, can you tell us when you met Dr. Eben Alexander, because he is here with us. So you will take your experience together and to talk about why you share this and you create this. Please.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. You mentioned that I partnered with Kevin Cossey. He's now an audio engineer, former mechanical and electric engineer. And when I met him, he told me about his amazing experiences, and we began creating these recordings together. I had amassed a large library of binaural beat recordings, and I knew how valuable they were to me. And I was very curious what he thought he could create. And so we had been doing that together for about a year. And that's when we both met Dr. Eben Alexander. And this was at a workshop where we were all exploring this idea of using sound to expand our consciousness. And when I first met Eben, his book wasn't out yet. And I knew he had had a near-death experience, and I had known others who'd had near-death experiences. And I knew that they usually came back with very profound spiritual lessons. And so that's what I was interested in. And I said, Eben, what was that thing that you learned during your near-death experience? What was that thing, that most important thing? And he says, the brain doesn't create consciousness. And I was confused because that's not usually what I would hear from someone who'd had such an experience. And I said, why would anyone think the brain creates consciousness? I didn't understand that concept. I did not understand at all that it was really the fulcrum of the materialist, scientific reduction materialist thought. And so to Eben, I was this breath of fresh air, I think, because I was already living my life, had been for many years, understanding that my consciousness or my soul was really guiding my experience. And I didn't necessarily understand everything about my soul. And that's what I wanted to learn more about. And so the sound really helps to quiet the mind and help you get into an expanded state of awareness. Eben was interested, as you know, because he wanted to duplicate or revisit features of his near-death experience. And what I had known from using binaural beats is that many of those same features can be experienced in deep meditation, especially when you can really remove yourself from the here and now and identify with this larger consciousness that really we're all a part of. And Eben, the science behind it all is very validating, but many of us, we don't have to wait for scientists to tell us that this is the truth. We can find out for ourselves. And that's precisely what our sound recordings help us to do, is to find out that we are eternal souls, residing in a physical body, but there's a much larger perspective of our existence. And so Eben discovered this through his near-death experience, and he invited me to then bring the sound out to other people, help other people have these kinds of experiences. And that's how we now do what we do today.
Yes. And do you think, Karen, that the melodies you have heard, Dr. Alexander, you have heard during your near-death experience. You explained to us that during a moment you have heard a lot of music, melodies, very profound sounds. Is that in accordance with now what you try to remake?
I would simply put that those sounds are kind of an idealized form of music that I heard deep in my journey, as many people report. And we're not trying to feed that same kind of sound into your ear.
We tried. We wanted to duplicate the sounds that Eben heard during his near-death experience. And it turns out it's impossible because we're very limited by what the human ear can really perceive.
So in other words, what we're actually doing is using these sounds. And I was attracted to binaural beats as a neuroscientific principle for meditation within 2 years of my coma. And that's how I originally pursued this pathway of understanding. But the important thing to state as a neuroscientist is what's going on here is these frequencies of slightly different frequencies to the two ears are having an effect on the lower brainstem. That's the important part. Every sound you've ever heard that might have engendered a chant, anthem, hymn, taking you to transcendental spiritual levels is processed up in the acoustic cortex of the temporal lobes. Very, very different is what's going on with sacred acoustics and similar binaural beat brainwave entrainment that are affecting a circuit in the lower brainstem. And I think that's why they're so incredibly powerful, because this ancient circuit plays such a role in our kind of thinking that the brain keeps us into self and a sense of here and now. And yet we realize that in the mental realm, we're not so locked into a here now and sense of self at all. And that's where meditation, especially, that focuses on putting the linguistic brain or the ego, the little voice in the head, into time out and allowing us to expand our relationship with the universe at large through this veiling function of the brain. That's why sacred acoustics is so powerful. That's why I continue to use them an hour to a day and have been for the last decade, not just to return to my experience, but to cultivate and nurture my relationship and understanding of all of that realm that I first encountered in the NDE.
But I would add, Eben talks about how he called that powerful deity at the center of his experience. He couldn't use the word God. He ended up using the word Om. And that's because he described this, ultimate resonance of eternity and infinity. That's what we tried to duplicate with our Om frequencies. And we came very close. We came, I think, as close as human music can come. And wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
And so the Om frequencies are very important in the Sacred Acoustics recordings. Many of ours begin with those Om frequencies.
Yes,
and
yes,
really,
I do. Yes.
It creates a wonderful foundation for kind of further exploration. And it's not necessarily associated with Eastern tradition, but we think of it as a universal sound that is there at the center. And some people, when they get into expanded states, they hear those sounds also. They've described them. Yes.
I discovered this sound 2 years ago, and I didn't know what it was. But in using it, it was so profound. It calmed you into your own body, and it makes something in your head. And after then, I use it a day during 2 or 3 hours long. And I don't know, it was a very beautiful meditation. And I think, yes, it's a universal sound, this one. It is given by the universe, by the divine consciousness, I think. Because all over the world, everybody uses it. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So sacred acoustics sound that you use in your site, in your company, so are created by Kevin Kersey, and with some of experiences as Dr. Alexander, for example.
Well, Kevin had a near-death experience. His was very short. He is someone who had maybe just a minute or two, but wow, does he describe it as a very powerful eye-opener. And the thing that's very unique about Kevin is that he is very adept at moving around in his energy body. And so when he and I first began this process, he would create a recording. He was in New York City at the time. I was in Baltimore, Maryland, many hours away, but that doesn't matter. Time and space doesn't matter. We would listen to the recording at the same time, and then afterwards we would share our experiences. And so Kevin would always talk about being out of his body. And at first that was rather intimidating. I learned some out of body techniques, and I am able to do it, but not to the extent that he is. And at first that was intimidating to me. But when we started exchanging stories about what was going on, I was picking up the same information. We were having shared experiences, but we were experiencing them in different ways. And that just speaks to how all of us are so unique. So some of us will have very defined out-of-body experiences. Others of us may just have, very deep knowings or feelings of connection. All experience is valid experience. And we want to be careful about chasing or going after, the exotic, because the point here is to really identify with yourself as a soul. And so to the extent that these kinds of experiences contribute to that knowledge, that's very valuable. Some of us can be distracted by the glamour of, all of the fun and the travel. And yes, it can be distracting. But for me, it's all about making that connection with my spiritual nature. And that helps to enrich and enliven my life here and now, here on earth. So I just want to make that distinction that, yes, having those spiritual experiences is wonderful. But the point is to bring that energy and knowledge into our lives here and now.
Yes, of course, because if you do this journey, this experience, is to bring it back on Earth to help. And it's what you do, Dr. Alexander, since then. And we are very grateful for that, for all people as you, Karen, that help now on Earth humanity to research the expansion of consciousness, because when we are not awakening, it's not easy to be in. It's not easy because you are distracted for everything. And above all, with our society, it's complicated. So when you are, as you are on a YouTube or documentary or internet with teachings, it's important to plant a seed, as I said, to plant a seed, and after we will see. It's important. We can't force, oblige somebody to awake. We can't.
No.
And we need, I think, I want to say that we need to have an experience, whatever the experience. For example, you live the death of someone of your family. Then you touch something at this moment. You have this experience because you have a feeling that change in you, and then you search. You want to know something. The something is the death, is the end of the life, for example. And then when you have Dr. Eben Alexander, who says that no, it's not the end of the life, you have the answer. You have to believe something. So for me, it was one of my answers when I discovered the teachings of Dr. Eben Alexander, when I read his books, for example, because I needed an answer about the death, afterlife. And then when you read this, you begin to go away, and you go where? In the divine consciousness, because you open your mind to other realms. So we need on Earth a lot of people like you. It's why I wanted to say that you are needed. And it's why Dr. Eben Alexander is coming back with a lot of teachings, because the divine consciousness, the God of the universe, has given him something to bring back in the here now. Yes, Karen, in the here now. Yes. So about your collaboration, your cooperation together, you make some sacred acoustics techniques a lot of times. You create some more every day. How do you process?
Yeah, the production process is moving a little slowly right now. Kevin is the father of 3 young children, and we're the same age, but I have a grandchild the same age as his children. So yeah, he's getting a later start. So we're not having as much production now, but we have such a variety of recordings that there's so much to offer people. And I would recommend that if someone is interested in trying this, absolutely give it a try. That is the best way to find out, not just hearing us talk about it, but having your own response to the recordings. And on sacredacoustics.com, you can look for the free download and enter your email, and we will send you a 20-minute Om recording. So again, that's kind of the foundation of everything. And some people use that recording for their daily practice. And there's many other sounds that people can try on our site. There's little short samples on each page, but also the whole mind bundle is an excellent place to begin. This set of recordings was used in a pilot study by a psychiatrist in New York City. And she found that after 2 weeks of listening, her patients saw a 26% reduction in anxiety. And so that was only 7% in her patients that had just their regular therapy without the sound. And so at the beginning of the COVID pandemic is when this study came out, and I decided to make these recordings accessible to all, because the world was going through so much anxiety and still is on some levels. And so those recordings remain available at a very low cost or free if you select the free option. If you're someone who is in financial, difficulties, don't let that be a barrier. You will need some headphones. That's very useful to getting the signal to both sides of the ears, but you can use earbuds. Anything you have that you use with your device will be very useful. And we continue to attract people who are just brand new beginners. I loved how you used that phrase, planting a seed, because really our role is not to change people's minds. As you said, people change their own minds. We're just presenting evidence. We're presenting scientific support for this. We understand that there are many ways to have spiritual knowledge, spiritual experience. And we feel that that is the key to humanity really moving forward, is understanding this spiritual nature that we all are a part of. And Eben will say that, we're all a part of one mind even. So I think of it as one heart, because I don't think it's our heads that are, getting together. I think it's our hearts through that binding force of love, that love that Eben did eventually speak about, that he discovered during his near-death experience. That was what I was expecting him to answer. Most people come back from their experiences talking about this amazing love and connection. And that's what we hope our message and our sounds are continuing to bring to people, planting that seed, and then giving, many ways that people can discover this knowledge. We profess that sound helps get you there, but many other techniques, and we're all unique. We're going to find different combinations of techniques that work well for us. So our idea is to encourage people to experiment through trial and error,
Yes.
just as I did with many different techniques in order to find really what works best for you.
Yes, yes.
I would simply add that our book that we wrote together, Living in a Mindful Universe, came out in 2017, which is available in French. It was published by Guy Tredaniel.
He's published all Eben's
he's
books.
published all of our books, and it's very exciting that they're in French. We love that because we have a great engagement with the French people and French culture. But I think the important thing to point out is that book is really a major statement about the current state of the science of consciousness and unites science and spirituality at a high level. Very much this book has been endorsed by scientists around the world who are leaders in the consciousness movement, like Ed Kelly, Bruce Grayson, and Jim Tucker.
Pim Van
Lommel, Dean Radin, Stan Krippner, many endorsers from the scientific field. And really, though, ultimately, the book is about personal journeying. And that's where Karen, I think, has been a tremendous mentor to me about spiritual journeying and understanding. So it's great that we can share that with the world in the form of this book, Living in a Mindful Universe.
Yes, yes, yes. It's sharing is personal journey. Yes, I love these words because it's you only can change if you want, and it's only who makes the journey. No one else. It's okay. It's to open our minds to our own soul. I think so. And with Sacred Acoustics techniques, I think that they need to change the process of cellulose. Do you think about that?
Change the process of
the process of entering the body in the cellular. Cellulose.
Well, the sound is working on a vibrational level. And so, we, excuse me, when we enter certain spaces, for example, sometimes we feel just so comforted and welcomed and warm. Other times we might enter a space and it feels maybe foreboding. I'm giving two extremes here, but we feel the vibration around us. And so everything around us, all the vibrations around us are affecting our cells. Yes. And so the sound of the Sacred Acoustics is also affecting our cells. But it's more of a, that it will affect us on a passive listening level, but it's more effective when we apply our intention, when we have a purpose for going into a meditation with sound. For Eben, it's often to, as he's explained, reconnect with that experience, that foundational reference point experience that he had. For me, it's been, I might go into a meditation with the intention to just trust and to open. And really just doing that sometimes welcomes amazing types of feelings and experiences. But other times you can be very intentional. Say if you have a problem that you're trying to resolve here, maybe it's a family problem, maybe it's a practical problem like selling your home or something. You can go into a meditation with the feeling of what it would be like when that intention was fulfilled, when that problem was solved. Feel that satisfaction, and then just open and trust, there's that word trust again, the universe, that resolution will be provided. And this is how we start to sort of co-create with the energy of the universe. We still use our thinking mind. We still take action in the world. But in addition, we have this connection. And it turns out that it's an incredible source of support in many, many ways, emotional, practical. It can really be quite very helpful sense when you're in a traumatic moment. So, when that trauma arises and you have this catalog of experiences that you've had, all it takes is to remember that reference point, bring that calmness back to your current state. And then you're much more able to, respond in a contentious situation. So many, many ways that, using sacred acoustics can help us not only to reduce anxiety, some people use it to support out-of-body experiences. Others might use it just to get a good night's sleep, right? So there's a very wide range, and that relies on your intention, your purpose, your desires, your personal goals. You bring that to your meditative experience, and that's how then you move forward to create the experience you wish to have.
Okay. And it's for that that Dr. Alexander comes back with experience and then share it, because he explains all that, and it changed our minds explaining that, because he comes as a scientist and then
that really helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
yeah. I was going to say, this revolution is really all about the science in many ways. The science fully supports it. People often think, well, what do your skeptical scientific colleagues think of all this? Well, in fact, a lot of them are actually involved in this kind of work and study. And we work with groups of hundreds of scientists around the world who realize that the materialist or physicalist model, brain creates consciousness, existence is birth to death. They realize the evidence says that we're much more than that. And that's why I think it's so important that Living in a Mindful Universe is endorsed by so many of these thought leaders, Bernardo Kastrup and others. And to me, an important thing to point out to people is I came to realize through all of this process that I am not equal to the thoughts in my head. So many people identify with the thoughts in their head and they think that's who they are. They think that's, when Rene Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, that's what they think is going on. But he should have said, I am aware of my thoughts and therefore I am, because the thoughts themselves are a little more than a parlor trick. There's much more going on here. And that's where meditation and putting that little ego voice, the little voice in our head, into timeout can be so important.
I just wanted to add about these scientists. I've met many of these scientists that Eben speak of, and it was intimidating at first because I'm not a scientist. And normally when I meet science-minded people, not in this environment, but out in the real world, the regular world, I'm not met with belief and open arms. I'm usually kind of dismissed and kind of little chuckles if I start talking about the afterlife and such. But when I've met the scientists Eben's speaking of, they are so open to really accepting that human experience is critical to understanding our existence. And it was such a breath of fresh air. These scientists exist who have an open mind, who want to hear the stories of people's human experience and not just dismiss them as, anecdotal evidence that doesn't matter. No, it does matter. And not only that, many of these scientists have had their own experiences. And as you say, that is what changes people's minds. We can open our minds when we hear other people's experience and wonder, but it's when we have our own experience, then we know. Then we know with certainty, oh yes, Eben is correct. I understand firsthand. So these scientists are definitely on board with this concept.
Yes.
That's where the meditation and sacred acoustics are so important, because you don't have to have a near-death experience to understand all this. By being an active meditator, someone who utilizes centering prayer, different modes of going within that mental space, you realize that the entire physical universe emerges from that mental space, and that we have much more power of free will than we might normally think. And certainly our materialist science says you don't even have free will. So anyway, but the scientific revolution now is moving far beyond those bleak and paltry fictions of materialism that pretend that existence is birth to death and nothing more, and that the brain creates consciousness. We're moving beyond those falsehoods into some very useful territory.
Yeah. I think that the science is at the door of consciousness, at the door. It's certain. So many testimonies and so many evidences all over the world. So the scientists are obliged to listen and to try to understand, because it's not possible that everywhere so many experiences. And as you said, you have not, we are not obliged to make a near-death experience, fortunately, because during meditation or during an hypnosis, we make experiences, very intense experiences, and it's going something. It's happened something, I want to say, at this moment. It's why we can say that there is nothing. There is the whole. There is consciousness everywhere. In the wholeness. There is something, of course.
And even with animals and trees and plants and nature, it's not just human consciousness. So many of us have deep connections with our animals. And animals,
yes, I have.
Yeah, sometimes they're easier to relate with because they don't have baggage and opinions and judgment. They just love you unconditionally. And I imagine a world where everyone has that capacity to just love all others unconditionally. And that world is, we hope, in our not so distant future.
Yes, we are on the road. We are, because there is a change that is occurring now. We feel it. I feel it with people I met, I think. It's changing.
Yeah, I think there's just a tremendous revolution going on kind of in the background of the scientific community, because in many ways, the kind of science journalists and media journalists don't really have the courage to talk about this, and they don't have the knowledge. They haven't studied the data. And yet the scientific community, if you go to scientificandmedical.net, or you go to GalileoCommission.org, those are two sites that are very important in stressing the modern scientific revolution. And as we discuss in our book, Living in a Mindful Universe, it's a multidisciplinary understanding. You need to know not just neuroscience, but philosophy of mind, parapsychology and all the evidence for non-local consciousness, a modern interpretation of quantum physics. Importantly, in the year 2022, the Nobel Prize in Physics was given for entanglement. Entanglement is a beautiful element of modern emerging physics that implies the unity of mind, of idealism or panentheism, these bigger concepts of mind dominating and controlling over matter, not matter being the dominant world. And so that's why I think Living in a Mindful Universe is such an important book. But these other sites, like these ones that I just mentioned, the scientific sites, are also very important because they realize, many physicists have known for decades that consciousness is fundamental in the universe. And that is really kind of the starting point for this incredible revolution in thinking. But the beautiful part of it, as Karen said earlier, is you don't have to wait for the scientific community to get on board. No. Each and every one of us as an individual seeker can use tools like Sacred Acoustics for going deep within consciousness and exploring and discovering for themselves these beautiful ongoing relationships with loved ones who have left the physical plane, who have died, and all the other connections we have, the kind of knowledge we can gain by leaving our little ego voice and ego mind behind and expanding our conscious awareness as a soul.
Yes, but the ego is always here to recommend something. And then he is always here. No. He says always no, of course. I think so.
Well, that's why it's so useful. Exactly that reason to identify with this other part of yourself. Eastern tradition might call it the inner observer. I call it, the soul perspective. Really, it's just a broader perspective beyond your concerns right now about, am I hot, am I cold, and such and such. But the ego is very important to get us through our days, but it is not who we should put all our reliance on for having the correct knowledge.
Remember that the ego is at the heart of addictions, for example, all kinds of addictions to drugs, alcohol, addiction to sex, work, exercise. We can be addicted to all kinds of things. And those are toxicities of the ego. And that's why, for example, some of the recent studies with plant medicines like psilocybin have enabled people to, with 1 or 2 doses, to have dramatic, profound curing of ego diseases and toxicity like addictions and like debilitating fear of death in cancer patients. But a single dose, and what we would argue is that in fact it's just that connection with higher soul that I think can better be accomplished through meditation. So it's important that the psychedelic substances are being investigated, but ultimately they're not necessary for the kind of growth we're talking about. Meditation, centering prayer can be beautiful ways of achieving these lofty goals of the higher soul.
Yes, it's a way to be calm and with our own the meditation. A moment you are for your own, because a lot of people are not aware of that. So we need to be with us, to be on your own. It's necessary to continue our life correctly and in the good way, because as I say, you need to hear your heart and not your mind. You need to hear what say your heart. Are you feel well here in your heart? Your decision. Do you feel well with your decision in your heart? Always in your heart. And the heart is a consciousness, because it is joined with the universe and all the best frequencies. Good
Yes,
vibrations.
I'm very tuned to the heart. I learned all of this from heart math, which so many people have. And this idea that the heart is much more powerful than the brain. And when you measure the electromagnetic field and the information transfer, the heart is really at the heart of matters, right? Yeah. And so paying attention to that is so important. And for me, when I first began the techniques of heart math to generate feelings of gratitude in the heart, it was very challenging. I could think of things I was grateful for, but generating a feeling was hard. And what I learned as I went through my meditative practice and different techniques is that I had stored in my energy, my heart, I believe, emotional traumas that I never properly processed from childhood and all of my life. I just put them aside and said they don't matter. And then when you go within, you start to find these emotions. And so I learned to release those emotions. And in doing so, it made it much more easy to generate those feelings of gratitude. But heart math would tell you that you're creating a coherence when you develop those feelings of gratitude. And not only are you helping your own body and your own spirit, but you're affecting those around you. And that, to me, we talk a lot about the golden rule, how you want to treat others as you would like to be treated. Well, that ultimate golden rule is to have a clear heart full of love for all of humanity, because that is how you're affecting people around you without even having to say a word. And this is something that Eben, even though he came back from his experience understanding that love, it takes time for near-death experiencers to really process, how do I bring that into this world? Yes. And I had learned how to do that. And so it's been a wonderful collaboration on that level as well.
And how to explain the unconditional love you received during the near-death experience?
The best way is to dive in and experience it, as Karen did, through cultivated, intentional dives into deep consciousness,
but
into
tell
that
us what
primordial
it's
mind.
like.
Well, it's just a state of complete bliss and ecstasy. It's why near-death experiencers, for thousands of years across all cultures and belief systems, have come back from these experiences with no fear of death. Most of them actually might say they'd prefer to have stayed there. And yet the reality is they had work to do here, something to bring back to this world, someone they had a responsibility for, other souls, what have you. But they came back here out of that sense of helping. And to me, it was very clear after my experience that this is where we get the growth done. This is where soul growth happens, is when we're in these bodies temporarily dumbed down to the knowledge of the higher soul. But it's through our actions and how we deal with the hardships in life. That is what enables our souls to grow more fully towards that oneness with the divine.
And another way I would describe that unconditional love, the way I've experienced it, is pure acceptance. No judgment at all. And so people often say no judgment. The opposite of that is acceptance. Just imagine a feeling of no matter what you've done in your life, it's all okay. It's all going to be fine. You're going to be fine. That is a beautiful feeling, because many of us, it's our inner talk that's constantly telling us we're not good enough, we're not worthy, you know, all of those things. And when you feel that acceptance, that just pure acceptance, you're so relieved. No, I am okay. I am worthy. And I'm just faced with challenges. And it's how we address those challenges. You know, are we full of anxiety and unable to act? Or do we see the larger perspective, and can we act with grace, compassion, and wisdom? And that's what I'm really learning how to do with all of the meditation experience I've had. How do I manage these traumas with much more grace and bring that acceptance to other people in my life? No matter what they do, I love them, I accept them. And that is so important to do, because all of us are faced with very challenging decisions sometimes. And it's not always known what the background of that person is and why they're making those decisions. So having compassion and understanding and acceptance is a beautiful way that we can bring this unconditional love to our fellow humans.
Yes, I'm agree. And I think it's incredible, because when you understand that, you change, you completely change. And then, as you say, Karen, when people look at you changing, they see there is something happen, of course. Why are you shining? Why are you always well with your body, well with your minds? All is okay, as you say. Yes, all is okay, because you need to forgive yourself. The acceptance. We are here on earth to accept our condition. And here to be on earth is our mission, only to be. And so we are always guilty of something. That's right. In our society, we are always guilty of something. But no, you are living an experience, bad or good one. Never mind. We are not in the judgment. We don't need the judgment. We don't have to judge somebody. And as you say, Karen, yes, we need to be in acceptance, in no judgment, in compassion. And I love everybody. Never he is. Never he is. I think so.
Well, important to say, point out, we're really all in this together. And one of the deepest lessons of near-death experiences is really that it supports this notion of the one mind.
Yeah.
And it's not just humans, but we're in it with all life and sentient life throughout the cosmos. And this is a beautiful gift to come to understand. In neuroscience, we would say the brain is a filter that allows a little eddy current of that primordial mind to come into our awareness. And yet ultimately, we all discover when we die and leave the physical body that we're connected through that mental space. And the binding force that connects us is one of love, kindness, compassion, mercy, acceptance, when necessary, forgiveness. But the more we can bring these kind of principles into our life and how we deal with ourselves and others, the more peace and harmony and growth and transformation we can find in our lives.
It's funny though, Eben just said near-death experiences, people realize we're all in this together. Well, in the real world, there are certain experiences where we do feel like we're all in this together. And the COVID pandemic is a beautiful example of that, but it happens with natural disasters as well. Earthquakes. Here in the US, it's often hurricanes or tornadoes. When communities are suddenly faced with horrible destruction. And what happens? Everyone jumps in to help. It is a beautiful thing in the aftermath of natural disasters, which are horrible to happen, but
Yes.
how everyone jumps in to help. It is so heartwarming. People opening their homes for people who have nothing. It's just a beautiful thing. Humans are in this together, and it's those kinds of traumas or disasters that remind us
Yes.
that we are in this together, and we must help each other through this. So,
Yes, and we see that humans are created with unconditional love.
mhm.
Whatever it happens.
It's
Whatever.
natural. We're born
It's
with
natural.
it. It actually is our birthright to identify with that love from which we came. We came from that love. We will return to that love. And knowing that is our birthright.
Yes,
as humans. Yeah.
and it's the best way to conduct our life,
Absolutely.
to be on our world and to be on earth.
Yes.
It's, yes, to be.
Yeah, integrity, grace, compassion, all of that are beautiful human qualities, and altruism is the highest of all, where you're really, serving others without any, regard to yourself. I want to caution, though, you should have regard for yourself. It is much more effective when you're helping other people if you come from a position of strength and grounding. And
Yes.
people who always focus on others and not themselves are doing a disservice, not only to themselves, but to others. So being strong yourself is absolutely part of being altruistic and helping others.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So beautiful words to finish our meeting. Do you have some last words to add in order to?
I would just say that anyone who takes the time, like yourself and any of your listeners who have taken the time to go within, to clear their traumas, to find that inner peace, to find that connection, you have our gratitude. We appreciate anyone who takes the time to do this, because the knowledge we have that we truly are all in this together, no soul left behind. All of us must be involved. And so please, anyone who does this, accept our gratitude and appreciation.
I would say Karen has said it all perfectly. I can't add
Thank you.
anything to
Yes,
that.
you should
No
say.
soul left behind.
Yes, thank
We're
you.
all
And
critical.
yes, and my word is that we are all together in one
Yes.
consciousness.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
There.
Thank you
Thank
for having.
you.
Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you for what you do to bring these messages to your audience.
Yes, I am here for that, to share.
Yes.
To share your experience, to share all our knowledge, because with that knowledge, we can continue on the road. Yes, and the journey. So thank you both. Thank you both for coming here and to share these beautiful words, and hope. Thank you very much for coming.
You.
Have a great day and take care of you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Ciao.